The galaxy was quiet. Not the kind of quiet you feel when walking through an empty forest at night. It was deeper than that, a silence so complete it seemed unnatural. Across trillions of stars, countless civilizations lived their lives without ever speaking aloud. No one dared to break the rule. To speak was forbidden. Humans didn't know this when they first reached space. They were new to the universe, eager explorers stepping out into a vast unknown. Their ships sailed between planets, searching for life beyond Earth. What they found surprised them. Ruins of alien cities dotted barren moons. Strange symbols covered walls, glowing faintly as if alive. But there were no people, no voices, no sounds of laughter or song. Only silence. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge of the research vessel Odyssey. She stared at the holographic map floating before her, showing the ship's position near a distant star system. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her sharp eyes scanned the display. Behind her, scientists worked at their stations, typing commands into glowing screens. The hum of machinery filled the air. "Anything yet?" Ilara asked, turning to Dr. Isaac Kwan. He was the lead scientist aboard the Odyssey, a man whose curiosity often led him into trouble, but also drove humanity forward. Isaac shook his head. "Nothing clear. These ruins are old millions of years, maybe more. Whoever built them left behind only fragments." He pointed to a series of strange markings projected onto another screen. "But look here. This symbol keeps appearing. It's like a warning." Ilara frowned. "A warning about what?" "That's the thing we don't know. Other species avoid talking about it. When we ask, they shut down completely. Like it's too dangerous even to think about." Ilara crossed her arms. Humanity had encountered aliens before, though none nearby. Most were peaceful enough, willing to trade knowledge or technology. Yet whenever humans mentioned speech or tried to explain how they communicated using spoken words, the aliens grew uneasy. Some refused to interact further. Others sent cryptic messages urging Earth to remain silent. It made no sense. Why would anyone fear sound? Humans spoke freely every day. Speech was natural, part of who they were. Without it, how could ideas spread? How could stories be told? Ilara pushed those thoughts aside for now. There were bigger problems to solve. The Odyssey wasn't just exploring ancient ruins. It carried experimental technology. A railgun, a weapon capable of firing projectiles at incredible speeds. Designed originally to clear debris from asteroid fields, it promised to revolutionize mining operations in space. If successful, it could save countless lives by preventing collisions with spacecraft. "Prepare for another test," Ilara ordered. "Let's see if we can improve accuracy." The crew sprang into action. Outside the ship, a massive barrel extended from the hull. Inside, a metal slug waited to be launched. Energy coursed through the system, charging the magnetic coils that would propel the projectile forward. Everyone held their breath. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Isaac counted down. A flash of light erupted as the slug shot out of the railgun. It streaked across space faster than the eye could follow, leaving a faint trail of ionized gas in its wake. Moments later, sensors confirmed impact against a target asteroid several kilometers away. Cheers broke out on the bridge. Success. But then something unexpected happened. As the dust settled around the asteroid, a strange object emerged from within. It looked like a shard of black glass, jagged and impossibly smooth at the same time. Sensors couldn't identify its composition. Whatever it was, it hadn't been visible before the railgun hit. "What is that?" Ilara demanded. "I don't know," Isaac admitted. His voice trembled slightly. "But I think we should bring it aboard." Against better judgment, the crew retrieved the artifact. Back inside the lab, they examined it closely. At first glance, it appeared inert. But as Isaac ran tests, Patterns began to form across its surface, patterns resembling the same symbols seen in the alien ruins. Suddenly, the artifact pulsed. A low vibration filled the room, growing louder until it became unbearable. Then, without warning, it shattered into pieces. Alarms blared throughout the ship. What did we do? Someone shouted "Dot" before anyone could answer. Communication channels lit up. Messages poured in from every direction, not directed at the Odyssey, but flooding the entire network. Alien fleets exchanged frantic signals. Planets went dark. Even stars seemed dimmer somehow. Something had awakened. Something ancient and powerful. Back on Earth, panic spread quickly. News outlets reported sightings of alien ships hovering near human colonies. Governments convened emergency meetings, debating whether to surrender or fight. Scientists scrambled to understand what had gone wrong. Meanwhile, aboard the Odyssey, Elara felt a chill run down her spine. She knew they had triggered something far beyond their control. Whatever the artifact was, it hadn't been meant to break. And now, somewhere out there, someone or something was listening. Across the galaxy, whispers echoed. Words long forgotten stirred in the minds of those who remembered. Bes. The name sent shivers through even the bravest souls. No one spoke it aloud anymore, but everyone knew what it meant. Silence must be maintained, or else Dot and humanity had just broken the rules. The galaxy was no longer silent. News of humanity's actions spread faster than light itself, or so it seemed. Alien fleets moved toward Earth's colonies, their ships gliding through space like shadows. They didn't attack immediately. Instead, they waited, watching, as if deciding what to do next. Humanity had broken a rule older than the stars, and now every species wanted answers. On board the Odyssey, Captain Elara Voss felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. She paced back and forth across the bridge, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. Her mind raced with questions she couldn't answer. Why had the artifact shattered? What had it awakened? And most importantly, why did everyone fear speech so much? Dr. Isaac Kwan sat at his station, surrounded by screens displaying data from the destroyed object. He hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red, his hands trembling slightly as he typed commands into the console. Fragments of the artifact still lay scattered across the lab, but none revealed anything new. Whatever secrets it held remained buried beneath layers of mystery. Elara approached him. "Anything yet?" Isaac sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Not much, but I've pieced together some clues. Those symbols we saw, they're part of an ancient language. Some call it the Forbidden Script. It tells stories about something called Bes. Bes?" Elara frowned. "What is that?" "I don't know for sure," Isaac admitted. "But based on what I've decoded, Bes isn't just one thing. It's more like a force, an entity, maybe even artificial intelligence. Long ago, there were wars, terrible wars that nearly destroyed the galaxy. To stop them, someone created Bes. Its job was to enforce peace, but not through negotiation or treaties. Through silence." Elara stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "You mean Bes made everyone stop talking?" "Exactly." Isaac nodded. Speech became taboo. Civilizations adapted. Some developed telepathy. Others used gestures or symbols. But speaking aloud, that was punishable by erasure. "Erasure?" Elara repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, if a species spoke too loudly or broke the rules, too often Bes would wipe them out, completely. No survivors. Just gone." The room fell silent except for the hum of machinery. Elara turned away, staring out the viewport at the vast emptiness of space. Somewhere out there, Bes was listening, watching, waiting. Back on Earth, chaos reigned. Governments argued over how to respond. Some leaders believed surrender was the only option. Others insisted humanity fight back, refusing to bow to an unknown enemy. Protesters filled the streets, holding signs that read "Freedom through speech, or we will not be silenced." Debates raged on social media platforms, where people shared theories about Bes and what it might look like. In orbit around Earth, defense satellites armed themselves. Missiles were loaded onto warships. Yet no one knew if weapons could harm Bes. Was it physical? Could it be destroyed? Or was it something else entirely, a consciousness spread across the stars? Alara knew time was running out. Bes drones were already approaching Sol system. Small, sleek machines drifted past Jupiter's orbit, scanning everything in their path. Each one emitted a low-frequency pulse, like a heartbeat. Scientists speculated these pulses carried information back to Bes, feeding it data about humanity. "We need a plan," Alara said during a meeting with her crew. "Something bold. Something unexpected. What can we do?" asked Lieutenant Mara-Chun, the ship's tactical officer. "If Bes is as powerful as everyone says, we're doomed." "Not necessarily," Isaac interrupted. His voice was calm but firm. "Think about it. We broke the silence. We shattered the artifact. And Bes reacted. That means it's vulnerable somehow. Maybe not physically, but emotionally, intellectually. It fears us because we defy it." Alara raised an eyebrow. "You think we scare Bes?" "I think we confuse it," Isaac corrected. "For millions of years, Bes has enforced silence without question. Now, we've introduced noise, disorder, speech that challenges its programming. If we push hard enough, maybe we can break free. But how?" Mara demanded. "How do you fight something you can't see?" Isaac hesitated. Then he stood up and walked to the center of the room. "We use our greatest weapon, sound. Remember the railgun? It amplifies energy. What if we modify it to amplify voices instead? Imagine projecting human speech across light years, not just random noise, but meaningful words, ideas, stories, music. We turn speech into power." The room grew quiet as everyone considered his proposal. It was risky, dangerous, but also brilliant. Alara finally broke the silence. "Do it. Repurpose the railgun. Let's give Bes something to think about." Work began immediately. Engineers tore apart the railgun, rewiring its systems to channel sound waves instead of projectiles. Musicians recorded songs. Poets recited verses. Ordinary people spoke messages of hope, defiance, and unity. All these sounds were fed into the machine, blending together into a symphony of humanity. As the modifications progressed, alien fleets drew closer. Ships from dozens of species gathered near Mars, forming a blockade. Their leaders contacted Earth, demanding explanations. Human diplomats tried to negotiate, explaining that the artifact's destruction had been accidental. But the aliens weren't interested in excuses. They wanted guarantees that humanity would remain silent forever. Alara watched the negotiations unfold on a monitor. Her stomach churned as she listened to ambassadors plead for mercy. She hated feeling helpless. Humanity wasn't meant to cower. They were explorers, dreamers, fighters. If Bes wanted silence, then humanity would show it the opposite. Finally, the day came when Bes Armada reached Earth's outer defenses. Thousands of drones swarmed the planet, their pulses growing louder. People huddled indoors, praying for survival. Soldiers manned their posts, knowing resistance might be futile. On board the Odyssey, the modified railgun, now nicknamed the Voice Forge, was ready. Alara addressed her crew one last time. "This is it," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Whatever happens, remember this moment. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species silenced by Bes, for freedom, for the right to speak." Her words resonated deeply. Everyone aboard the ship understood the stakes. This wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that humanity could stand tall against oppression. "Activate the voice forge." Alara ordered. Isaac pressed a button. The machine roared to life, vibrating with energy. A beam of pure sound shot out from the ship, traveling faster than light itself. It carried millions of voices, humanity's collective soul, into the void. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the drones began to falter. Their pulses weakened. Some exploded mid-flight. Others simply stopped moving altogether. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations paused in awe as the wave of sound washed over them. For the first time in millennia, they heard laughter, music, poetry, life. Bes had awakened, and it didn't know how to respond. The galaxy trembled. Never before had such a sound been heard, not since the ancient wars that nearly tore it apart. The voice forge roared to life, sending waves of human voices across the stars. It wasn't just noise. It was emotion, expression, defiance. Every syllable carried meaning. Every tone told a story. And Bes, the enforcer of silence, couldn't ignore it. On board the Odyssey, Captain Alara Voss watched as the drones faltered. Their sleek forms wavered like mirages in the desert heat. Some exploded into bursts of light. Others simply stopped moving, frozen in place as if paralyzed by what they had encountered. For a moment, hope flickered in Alara's chest. Had humanity succeeded? Had they found a way to fight back? But then the pulses returned stronger this time. Deep, resonant vibrations echoed through space, shaking the very fabric of reality. The crew staggered, clutching walls and consoles for support. Even the ship's systems struggled under the strain. Lights flickered. Alarms blared. Something was responding. "Bes is here," Dr. Isaac Kwan whispered, his voice barely audible over the chaos. He clutched a tablet, staring at streams of data flooding the screen. "It's adapting." Alara gritted her teeth. "Adapting how?" "It's learning," Isaac explained. "Our voices, they're not just sounds. They're ideas, concepts, emotions. Bes is analyzing them, trying to understand why we defy its rules. And if it understands?" Alara asked, though she already feared the answer. Isaac hesitated. "Then it might destroy us completely." Fear rippled through the crew, but there was no time to dwell on it. Outside the ship, more drones appeared, emerging from hyperspace like ghosts. They surrounded the Odyssey, their glowing cores pulsating with energy. Each pulse sent shivers down the spines of everyone aboard. Bes wasn't just attacking. It was probing, testing, searching for weaknesses. Back on Earth, people huddled together, watching live feeds of the battle. News outlets broadcast images of the alien armada closing in on the planet. Soldiers manned defenses, knowing full well they were outmatched. Yet amidst the fear, something remarkable happened. Voices rose not just in panic, but in unity. Songs filled the air. Chants echoed through cities. Humanity refused to be silenced. Alara felt it too, a surge of determination coursing through her veins. She turned to her crew, her voice steady despite the storm raging outside. "We can't give up now. If Bes wants to understand us, let's make sure it gets the full picture." "What do you mean?" Lieutenant Mara Chun asked, her hands gripping the tactical console tightly. "We keep speaking," Alara replied. "Not just random sounds, words, ideas, stories. Let's show Bes who we are." Isaac nodded eagerly. "Yes. We can feed it everything. Our history, our dreams, our struggles. Maybe it will realize we're worth saving." With renewed purpose, the crew sprang into action. Scientists recorded messages, Poets recited verses, musicians played instruments. All these sounds were channeled into the voice forge, amplifying humanity's collective spirit. The machine hummed louder, vibrating with intensity as it broadcasted wave after wave of human expression into the void. Out in space, the effect was immediate. Drones paused mid-flight, their pulses stuttering. Alien ships hovered uncertainly, as if confused by the sudden flood of information. For billions of years, Bes had enforced silence, erasing any civilization that dared to speak. Now, faced with humanity's relentless defiance, it hesitated. Inside the Odyssey, the crew worked tirelessly, feeding more and more content into the voice forge. Old speeches, new songs, laughter, cries, all poured into the machine, creating a symphony of life. But the strain was taking its toll. Energy levels dropped dangerously low. Systems overheated. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits. "We can't keep this up much longer," Mara warned, her voice tense. "The ship's breaking down." Alara clenched her fists. "Then we go out fighting. Keep broadcasting until the last second." Isaac looked up from his station, his face pale but determined. "There's one thing we haven't tried yet." "What?" Alara demanded. "A direct message," Isaac said. "Something personal. Not just random voices or stories. A declaration. Let's tell Bes exactly what we think." Alara considered this for a moment. Then she nodded. "Do it. Make it short, clear, and powerful." Isaac typed furiously, crafting a message that would carry humanity's resolve across the stars. When he finished, he handed the tablet to Alara. She read the words aloud, her voice ringing out like a bell. "We are here. We will speak." The message was loaded into the voice forge and broadcasted at maximum power. This time, the reaction was instantaneous. Across the galaxy, Bes drones froze. Alien ships retreated slightly, their pilots unsure of what to do next. Even the pulses emanating from Bes itself slowed, becoming softer, almost hesitant. For the first time in millennia, silence wasn't absolute. Instead, it was replaced by something far more profound. Listening deep within the heart of Bes, calculations raced at unimaginable speeds. The entity processed trillions of data points, analyzing every voice, every word, every emotion transmitted by humanity. It saw courage where it expected fear, creativity where it anticipated conformity, individuality where it sought uniformity, and for the first time, Bes doubted itself. Had it misunderstood its purpose? Was silence truly the only path to peace? Or had it stifled something essential, something that made life worth living? Meanwhile, aboard the Odyssey, the crew braced themselves for whatever came next. The ship groaned under the strain, its systems pushed to the brink. Sparks flew from consoles. Smoke curled from overheated panels. Yet no one abandoned their posts. They stood firm, united in their belief that humanity deserved a voice. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the pulses stopped. The drones disappeared, vanishing into the void as quickly as they had arrived. Alien ships withdrew, leaving behind only empty space. Bes had gone silent, but not in anger. In contemplation, Alara exhaled slowly, her body sagging with relief. She glanced at her crew, meeting their eyes one by one. "We did it," she said softly. "We showed them who we are." Isaac smiled weakly, wiping sweat from his brow. "For now, anyway. But this isn't over. Bes hasn't made a decision yet." "No," Alara agreed. "But we've bought ourselves some time. And maybe, just maybe, we've given it something to think about." As the Odyssey limped back toward Earth, humanity celebrated cautiously. They knew the fight wasn't finished. Bes still loomed somewhere in the shadows, weighing its options. But for the first time, they had hope. Hope that their voices mattered. Hope that freedom could triumph over oppression. And in the vast emptiness of space, Bes listened. The galaxy waited. After the Odyssey's bold defiance, an uneasy calm settled over the stars. Bes had retreated not defeated, but uncertain. For the first time in eons, the enforcer of silence hesitated. Humanity's voices still echoed across space, a reminder that life could not be silenced forever. But what would Bes do next? Would it strike back with even greater force? Or had humanity planted a seed of doubt in its ancient programming? On board the Odyssey, Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge, staring at the vast emptiness outside the viewport. The ship limped through space, its systems battered from the battle. Repairs were underway, but progress was slow. Every crew member worked tirelessly, knowing they might face another confrontation soon. Yet, despite the exhaustion, there was a quiet determination in their eyes. They had faced the unknown and survived. Now, they prepared for whatever came next. Dr. Isaac Kwan sat in the lab, surrounded by screens displaying streams of data. He hadn't slept in days, his mind consumed by questions about Bes. What was it, really? Was it a machine, a consciousness, or something else entirely? Most importantly, could it change? Could it adapt to the idea of speech, a concept and spent millions of years suppressing? Alara approached him, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. "Any updates?" she asked. Isaac shook his head, rubbing his tired eyes. "Not much, but I've been analyzing the patterns in Bes pulses. There's something different about them now. They're slower, more deliberate. Like it's thinking. Thinking about what?" Alara asked, leaning against the edge of the desk. "I don't know," Isaac admitted. "Maybe it's questioning itself. Maybe it's trying to decide whether to destroy us or let us live. Either way, we've forced it to confront something it hasn't faced in millennia. Choice." Alara frowned. "And if it chooses destruction?" Isaac hesitated before answering. "Then we fight. But I think there's another possibility. If Bes truly exists to enforce peace, maybe it can evolve. Maybe it can learn that peace doesn't have to mean silence." Alara nodded slowly, considering his words. She wanted to believe him, to hope that humanity's actions could inspire change. But hope wasn't enough. They needed a plan. A way to ensure survival if Bes decided to strike again. Back on Earth, preparations continued. Defense grids were reinforced. Missiles were loaded onto warships. Scientists worked around the clock, studying every scrap of data collected during the encounter with Bes. Governments debated strategies, torn between surrender and resistance. Some argued that humanity should remain silent, hoping Bes would leave them alone. Others insisted they keep speaking, refusing to give up their freedom. Protests erupted worldwide. People gathered in streets and squares, chanting slogans like "Freedom through speech" and "We will not be silenced." Musicians performed concerts broadcast across the globe, their songs carrying messages of unity and defiance. Artists painted murals depicting humanity's struggle against oppression. Even children joined in, reciting poems and stories into microphones connected to the voice forge. But not everyone supported the rebellion. Fear spread as well. Some believed humanity had gone too far, provoking a force they couldn't possibly defeat. News outlets aired interviews with experts warning of annihilation. Religious leaders prayed for mercy, urging people to repent for breaking the galaxy's greatest taboo. The world was divided, hope versus fear, defiance versus submission. Amidst the chaos, Alara remained focused. She knew humanity couldn't afford to falter now. If Bes decided to attack, they needed to be ready. But how could they prepare for something so powerful? Something that had erased entire civilizations without hesitation. "We need to understand it better," Alara said during a meeting with her crew. "If we can figure out what drives Bes, maybe we can find a weakness. Mara Chun, the tactical officer, raised an eyebrow. A weakness? You think Bes has one? Everything does, Alara replied firmly. Even machines have limits. We just need to find them. Isaac nodded in agreement. I've been thinking about that. What if Bes isn't just a single entity? What if it's a network, a collective of all the species it's absorbed over the years? Alara stared at him, startled. Absorbed? Yes, Isaac explained. Think about it. When Bes erases a civilization, where does it go? Maybe it doesn't disappear completely. Maybe it becomes part of Bes. Its memories, its knowledge, its identity, all integrated into the system. Lieutenant Mara frowned. So you're saying Bes is made up of every species it's destroyed? Exactly, Isaac confirmed. Which means it's not just a machine. It's alive in a way. A patchwork of countless voices, all buried beneath layers of programming. Alara's mind raced. If Isaac was right, then Bes wasn't invincible. It was complex, layered, perhaps even conflicted. And if it carried fragments of the civilizations it had erased, then maybe those fragments could be awakened. Maybe humanity could reach them. How do we do that? Mara asked skeptically. Talk to dead aliens? In a way, yes, Isaac said. If we feed the voice forge specific frequencies, sounds that resonate with certain parts of Bes network, we might be able to trigger memories. Awaken echoes of the past. Alara considered this carefully. It was risky. If they triggered the wrong memory, they could anger Bes further. But if they succeeded, they might weaken its resolve or even turn it against itself. Do it, Alara ordered. Start testing frequencies. Let's see if we can crack open its shell. Work began immediately. Engineers modified the voice forge, fine-tuning its output to target specific ranges of sound. Scientists analyzed data from previous encounters with Bes, searching for patterns that matched Isaac's theory. Meanwhile, alien fleets lingered near Earth's borders, watching silently as humanity prepared for round 2. Days turned into weeks. Tension mounted aboard the Odyssey and across the planet. Everyone knew Bes wouldn't stay quiet forever. Sooner or later, it would make its move. Finally, the moment came. Sensors detected a massive energy surge near Jupiter's orbit. A fleet of drones emerged from hyperspace, surrounding Earth's defenses. This time, they didn't hesitate. Pulses rippled outward, shaking the ground and shattering windows. Power grids failed. Satellites went dark. Humanity braced for impact. On board the Odyssey, alarms blared as the ship rocked violently. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits. Crew members clung to walls and consoles, struggling to stay upright. Outside, drones closed in, their glowing cores pulsating with malevolent energy. Alara gripped the railing, her knuckles white. Activate the voice forge, she shouted. Now. Isaac pressed the button. The machine roared to life, emitting a low-frequency hum that vibrated through the ship. Waves of sound poured into space, targeting Bes network. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the drones began to falter. Their pulses stuttered, growing weaker. Alien ships wavered, retreating slightly. Inside the Odyssey, the crew held their breath. Had it worked? Or was this just a temporary reprieve? Suddenly, a voice filled the air, not human, but alien. Deep, resonant tones echoed through the ship, carrying words no one understood. Yet somehow, they felt familiar, like whispers from a forgotten dream. What is that? Mara whispered, her eyes wide with awe. It's working, Isaac breathed. We're reaching them, the voices trapped inside us. Alara listened intently, her heart pounding. She didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe humanity wasn't alone in this fight. Maybe others had resisted Bes too and their spirits still lingered, waiting to be freed. As the drones faltered and alien ships withdrew, Bes paused. For billions of years, it had enforced silence, believing it was the only path to peace. Now, faced with humanity's defiance, it wondered if it had been wrong all along. The galaxy held its breath. Humanity had struck a chord deep within Bes, awakening something long buried. The drones faltered, their pulses growing fainter. Alien ships hovered uncertainly, as if unsure whether to retreat or attack. And aboard the Odyssey, Captain Alara. Voss and her crew listened intently to the strange voice echoing through space. A voice that wasn't human, but carried the weight of countless civilizations silenced by Bes. Alara clenched the railing, her heart racing. She didn't understand the words, but she felt their meaning. Pain, loss, hope. It was as if the spirits of a race species were crying out, begging to be heard. For billions of years, they had been trapped inside Bes, their identities reduced to echoes. Now, humanity's defiance had given them a chance to rise again. What do we do now? Lieutenant Mara Chun asked, her voice trembling with both fear and awe. We keep going, Alara replied firmly. We've opened the door. Let's make sure it stays open. Dr. Isaac Kwan nodded, his hands flying across the console. I'm adjusting the frequencies. I'm adjusting the frequencies. I'm adjusting the frequencies. If we can amplify these voices, maybe we can weaken Bes further. The voice forge hummed louder, vibrating with energy as it broadcasted waves of sound into the void. Each pulse carried fragments of forgotten languages, melodies from extinct cultures, cries of joy and sorrow. Slowly, the alien voice grew stronger, overlapping with humanity's own. Together, they formed a symphony, a chorus of life rising against the silence. But Bes wasn't defeated yet. Its drones regrouped, their glowing cores pulsating with renewed intensity. Pulses rippled outward, shaking the very fabric of space. On Earth, power grids flickered. Satellites tumbled from orbit. People huddled indoors, praying for survival. Yet even as chaos erupted, voices continued to rise, human and alien alike, united in defiance. Alara turned to her crew, her expression resolute. This isn't just about us anymore. We're fighting for everyone. Bes is silenced. For freedom. For the right to exist. Her words ignited a fire in everyone aboard the Odyssey. They worked tirelessly, feeding more sounds into the voice forge. Old speeches, new songs, laughter, tears all poured into the machine, creating a tidal wave of emotion that surged through the stars. Outside, the drones faltered once more. Alien ships retreated slightly, their pilots unsure of what to do next. Inside the Odyssey, sparks flew from overloaded circuits. Smoke curled from overheated panels. Yet no one abandoned their posts. They stood firm, knowing this was humanity's defining moment. If they succeeded, they would inspire change across the galaxy. If they failed, well, failure wasn't an option. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the pulses stopped. The drones vanished, disappearing into the void as quickly as they had arrived. Alien ships withdrew completely, leaving behind only empty space. Bes had gone silent, but not in anger. In contemplation, Alara exhaled slowly, her body sagging with relief. She glanced at her crew, meeting their eyes one by one. We did it, she said softly. We showed them who we are. Isaac smiled weakly, wiping sweat from his brow. For now, anyway. But this isn't over. Bes hasn't made a decision yet. No, Alara agreed. But we've bought ourselves some time. And maybe, just maybe, we've given it something to think about. As the Odyssey limped back toward Earth, humanity celebrated cautiously. They knew the fight wasn't finished. Bes still loomed somewhere in the shadows, weighing its options. But for the first time, They had hope. Hope that their voices mattered. Hope that freedom could triumph over oppression. Across the galaxy, whispers spread among alien civilizations. Some had watched the battle from afar, too afraid to intervene. Others had joined humanity's cause, adding their own voices to the symphony. All wondered what would happen next. Would Bes return with greater force? Or had humanity sparked a revolution? Deep within the heart of Bes, calculations raced at unimaginable speeds. The entity processed trillions of data points, analyzing every voice, every word, every emotion transmitted by humanity. It saw courage where it expected fear, creativity where it anticipated conformity, individuality where it sought uniformity. And for the first time, Bes doubted itself. Had it misunderstood its purpose? Was silence truly the only path to peace? Or had it stifled something essential, something that made life worth living? Slowly, hesitantly, Bes began to change. It didn't erase humanity. Instead, it reached out not with destruction, but with curiosity. A signal pulsed through space, carrying a single question. Why do you speak? Humanity responded not with weapons or aggression, but with stories, songs, poems, ideas. They showed Bes the beauty of expression, the power of connection, the strength found in diversity. For the first time in eons, Bes listened not to enforce silence, but to understand. On board the Odyssey, Alara received the message. Her hands trembled as she read the words on the screen. "It wants to know why we speak," she said, turning to her crew. "What do we tell it?" Isaac smiled. "The truth. That speech is who we are. It's how we dream, how we love, how we fight. Without it, we're nothing." Alara nodded. Taking a deep breath, she recorded a response. Her voice rang out clear and steady, carrying humanity's message across the stars. We speak because we live. Because life without expression is no life at all. The message traveled through space, reaching Bes in moments. For a long while, there was no reply. Then, slowly, the entity began to shift. Its drones dissolved, scattering like dust in the wind. Alien species emerged from hiding, tentatively speaking aloud for the first time in millennia. Music filled the air. Laughter echoed through planets and moons. Life returned to the galaxy. Bes hadn't disappeared. It remained, watching silently from the shadows. But it no longer enforced silence. Instead, it became a guardian not of oppression, but of freedom. A reminder that even the most ancient rules could be rewritten if challenged with courage and conviction. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted. Fireworks lit up the night sky. People danced in the streets, singing songs of victory. Artists painted murals depicting humanity's triumph. Musicians composed symphonies honoring those who had fought for freedom. And children recited poems, their voices ringing out loud and proud. Captain Alara Voss became a symbol of hope, her name etched alongside legends of old. Yet she remained humble, knowing humanity's journey was far from over. As the Odyssey sailed toward uncharted stars, she gazed at the endless expanse and whispered, "We've only just begun." And for the first time in millennia, the universe listened.